And once again, I want to say greetings to each and every one of you, Aquaba, and welcome. Welcome to another round of the Conscious Rasta Report here on LIB Radio, LIBTV, LivingBlack.com. My name is Kidi Obiawadu, aka the Conscious Rasta. Weekday mornings, you and I get together. We come at you live from 9 a.m. Pacific time. That's 12 noon Eastern time, 5 p.m. GMT, and 8 p.m. East Africa time. We get together with you, and we deal with culture, consciousness, historical perspectives. We deal with entertainment, economics, education, health, labor, law, politics, religion, family, conflict, future studies, all areas of human interactivity and development. Today's date is Wednesday. It is the 18th day, the 17th day of December, the year 2025 in the Western calendar, the Gregorian calendar. This corresponds to the year 6265, 6266 in the Kemetic calendar, to which we've realigned our cultural clock. Welcome to the 7th millennium. You have found your family in a peaceful place here on LIB Radio, LIB TV, here on Living in Black.com. And I think you're going to be very impressed with what we have to share. Bear with me in the background. Something is glitching over here on the computer, which is broadcasting to the internet. But we're going to do the best we can to keep things together, because this is a very important program that we have to share with you today. And I'm going to have to turn off my green screen background because I am wearing green, and the green background, if I turn it off, I go invisible. And you don't want me to go invisible today. Here's what we have on store for you today. Welcome once again to the Conscious Rasta Report. Today we examine, quote, planned chaos in rap video culture, unquote, and explore a controversial theory that rap video imagery has been meticulously engineered as a control mechanism targeting young people of childbearing age. This isn't random. It's allegedly systematic. We'll trace connections threading through entertainment industry executives, media conglomerates, and government power structures. Who benefits from this ongoing chaos? Join us as we question the narrative and follow the money upward. So today's discussion is on my book, the book, Rap, Hip Hop, and the New World Order, Update 2025. Rap, Hip Hop, and the New World Order. And much of the reason I'm doing it today is because the revelations during the course of and in the aftermath of the Puffy Combs, P. Diddy affair, Sean Combs. I'm going to play a short piece of video right now that you should be able to understand what's going on with this short piece of video. So I'm going to add this to the stage. And I've got a couple of pieces of video I'm going to share with you today. Let's add this first one to the stage. Check it out.
So at this point, I'm sure everyone has had the opportunity to watch the new Netflix documentary about Diddy, The Reckoning, produced by 50 Cent. So I'm going to give you my key takeaways from the documentary. 1, Puff and Big were not best friends like Puff has led us to believe over the past 30 years. He treated Big just as bad in death as he's treated every other bad boy artist in life. Horrible. I mean, he literally took the cover of Rolling Stone from Big just to promote himself, on top of the fact that he used Big's estate to pay for his funeral. Diabolical. 2, this little nigga's a problem. On multiple occasions during the documentary, you can literally hear Diddy saying, "You need to figure out what you're going to do because I can't do nothing." And he was referring to Justin like he was his security or something. On top of the fact that Lil Rod actually placed Justin in the studio with them on the night someone was pew pew. 3. Andre Harrell and P. Diddy relationship was a weird one to watch. These guys definitely had more going on with each other than making music. Last but not least, I feel like Puff was threatened by the friendship that Pac and Big had because Pac didn't mess with Puff. And at this point, I'm about 100% sure he definitely had something to do with both of these iconic rappers not being with us anymore. But you guys let me know what you think of the documentary and how you feel about it. It's your boy, Brian. Shout out to everybody involved. I'm out. So at this point, I'm sure everyone has had the opportunity.
Turn my microphone back on. That short piece of video you just saw was entitled Puff Diddy, P. Diddy, The Reckoning Documentary, Key Takeaways. I'm going to show another short piece of video right now. And this one is from Snoop Dogg's, bear with me. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this. Copy this video. It's from YouTube, and it is entitled Murder Was the Case. This is by Snoop Dogg. I want you to pay close attention because it is what it is. And now we know there's so much more to this. Now, I'm going to play this short. This is a news coverage on the case of Calvin Broadus, aka Snoop Dogg. And this is going to give us a good exposure, if you ask me, of it's going to give us an invite to peek behind the scenes and see what is going on in Hollywood. So I'm going to share screen right here, up on the screen. There it is. Place it onto your screen. There's a whole bunch of sequence of buttons I have to push to add to the stage. And I'm going to go ahead and play this for you right now.
Snoop Dogg's career. Snoop's been on top since Dre discovered him in '92, but a few years prior, he was a thug who constantly battled the law. He ran with the Rollin' 20s Crips, a gang from his native Long Beach, California. As his star continued to grow, Snoop struggled to separate himself from the gang. That is until one altercation came to a boiling point. Snoop and his bodyguard Malik pulled up on rival gang members just hours after a heated exchange. Snoop rolled his Jeep to the park bench and began to trade words. One of the rival members set Malik off, so he stood up inside of their topless Jeep, pulled his pistol, and gunned the man down. Snoop peeled off in a panic and hid out for 2 days before turning himself in. He was charged with murder, but during the trial, we discovered the victim tried to pull out his own pistol before Malik shot in self-defense. It was also discovered the LAPD accidentally destroyed crucial evidence, including bullets from the scene. Snoop was acquitted in '96 and points to this as a turning point in his career. He stopped rapping about death as he didn't want to use his voice to glorify violence and murder. Throw me a follow if you didn't know this. If you did, I'll start a fun. A murder charge almost derailed Snoop Dogg's career. Snoop's been on top since Dre discovered him in '92, but a few years prior, he was a thug who constantly battled the law. He ran with the Rollin' 20s Crips, a gang from his native Long Beach, California. As his star continued to grow, Snoop struggled to separate himself from the gang. That is until one altercation came to a boiling point. Snoop and his bodyguard Malik pulled up on rival gang members just hours after a heated exchange. Snoop rolled his Jeep to their park bench and began to trade words. One of the rival members set Malik off, so he stood up inside of their topless Jeep, pulled his pistol, and gunned the man down. Snoop peeled off in a panic and hid out for 2 days before turning himself in. He was charged with murder. During the trial, we discovered the victim tried to pull out his own pistol before Malik shot him in self-defense. It was also discovered the LAPD accidentally destroyed crucial evidence, including bullets from the scene. Snoop was acquitted in '96 and points to this as a turning point in his career. He stopped rapping about death as he didn't want to use his voice to glorify violence.
Well, we'll talk more about what Snoop is currently using his voice for. Let me just drop this right now. There's a third piece of video. Now, I'm going to show you the original you were hearing in the background while that was playing, the soundtrack to the case, to the song or video, Murder Was the Case. It's very key and critical that we must watch that video next in the sequence. And I have one more piece of video I'm going to be sharing with you right now, but this one is Murder Was the Case. This is by Snoop And you tell me what you are seeing. Murder was the case.
We have just arrived live on the scene of a murder that happened late last night. And although details are very sketchy, we do know that one of the shooting victims is rapper Snoop Doggy Dogg. There was apparently a lot of gunfire here.
Aquí aparecieron el Snoop Doggy Dogg. No sabemos por qué es motivo, pero
as I look up at the sky, my mind starts dripping, a teardrop my eye. My body temperature falls. I'm shaking and they breaking, trying to save the dough. Pumping on my chest and I'm screaming. I stop breathing. Damn, I see demons. Dear God, I wonder, can you save me? I can't die, my boo-boo's about to have my baby. I think it's too late for praying. Hold up, her voice spoke to me and it slowly started saying,
bring your lifestyle to me, I'll make it better.
and how long will I live?
Eternal life and forever.
Or will I be the G that I
I make
was?
your life better than you can imagine or even dreamed of. So relax yourself, let me take control. Close your eyes, my soul.
My eyes are closed. Murder was the case that they gave me. 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 I'm fresh up out my coma. I got my mama and my daddy and my homies in my coma. It's gonna take a miracle, like safe for me to walk again and talk again. But anyway, I get running some keys to get back on my feet. And everything that he said came to reality. Living like a baller low, I'm having money and blowing hella smoke. I bought my mama a Benz, my boo-boo was Jag, and now I'm rolling in the 9 tricks AL Dog Ray.
Just remember who changed your mind, cause when you start set tripping, that ass is mine.
And then, agree, proceed to smoke. Never have a want, never have a need. They say I'm greedy, but I still want more. Cause my eyes want to journey some more. Fill it up.
Check it out.
I pray the Lord, my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord, my soul
Murder was the case that they gave me. Murder was the case that they gave me. Murder was the case that they gave me. No more endo, gin and juice. I'm on my way to Chino, rolling on the Grey Goose, shackle from head to toe. 25 with the SL, with nowhere to get, so I know. From the other side, recognize my face, cause it's the OG, Digo double G, LBC. Man dogging, cause I don't care. Red jumpsuit with 2 braids in my head. Stare as I enter the center. They send me to a level 3 yard. That's where I stay late night. I get toothbrushes scraping on the floor. Getting they shakes just in case the war pops off. Cause you can't twist next. My little homie, baby booty, took a pencil in his neck. And he probably won't make it to C22. I put that on my mama. I'm gonna ride for you, baby boo. Murder was the case that they gave me. Murder was the case that they gave me. Murder was the case that they gave me. Murder was the case that they gave me.
All right. Now, that was the third piece of video that I had to share today. There is one more piece which is going to bring us up to date. In this piece, once again from YouTube, we're going to share this short piece of video, and then I've got my research to share with you today. So bear with me as we put this clip in. And I do see a note from my sister for Africa One. She says murder was the case. The one that earlier was playing the news coverage, it wasn't it was she said it was echoing so badly. It's because my microphone was on and I did take it off at a certain point. But I do want to show this next piece of video, which is probably the most important one of all. I'm going to put this up onto my screen, share it to the screen, share it to today. And this is entitled The Shocking Diddy Verse We Forgot. Now, this talks about Diddy's relationship with 50 Cent and how it was so crazy and confusing. And this is a very important conversation that we must share with you today. Bear with me. A couple of more buttons to push and loading these things up for you to see, you to hear. I sometimes have to push like up to 8, 9, or even 10 buttons, even to turn my microphone on and off. We're doing the best we can. Let's go. Let's play this next piece of video.
If ever there's been a prophetic song, this is it. In 2001, P. Diddy and G-Dep released a song called Let's Get It. Diddy features on the second verse where he opens up by saying this.
I run this city, send the cops, DA the Fed to come get me. Send the cops, DA the Fed to come get me.
Ironically, the number 24 on Diddy's jersey was the year he was arrested. Diddy continues his verse with a not so subtle warning to his peers.
Cats want to leave me for dead, you're coming with me. You're coming with me.
Coming to the end of his verse, Diddy suggests a possible hiding place.
Hide out in Egypt.
That's good. The craziest part of this story is Diddy didn't even write his verse. 50 Cent did.
Oh, the G-Dep joint. Yeah. You wrote that?
And to top things off, 50 also wrote Diddy's verse on the I Get Money remix, where he has him saying this.
Bo knows, but Diddy did it. Shootouts, coastal beef, shit, Diddy did it.
God damn.
Niggas spent Christmas in jail.
If ever there's been a prophetic song, this is it. In 2001, P. Diddy and G-Dep.
All right, that was enough to start to replay. Now, the key about it in that last video was talking about Diddy. He couldn't even rap and he couldn't write. There's another case in here where and I was looking at another video where the author and the singer was doing the best he could to coach Diddy, sing it exactly, or rap it, sing it, whatever, exactly as I did it. And then the guy showed his verse and then he imitated Diddy imitating him, and he basically said to Diddy, no, ain't happening at all. So that's a whole nother topic. Here's really what I want to focus on today. I want to focus on this book, Rap, Hip Hop, and the New World Order. The book originally came out in 1997. And I was talking to my brother Jabari yesterday, and he said, man, because Jabari was one of the first people to see the research that went into this, as I was doing a lot of work with Conscious Head's bookstore at that time. And I was doing live. I would fly to Baltimore and we would do this research in real time in front of an audience. So this is 1997. Here we are, 2025, 28 years after the fact. The facts are now surfacing of what is going on. Let me tell you what the facts are going to show. Number one, and I took these from chapter titles from my book. Number one, today we will deal with population wars as culture wars. Point two, recruiting indigenous collaborators. Point three, strange bedfellows, hip hop and COINTELPRO. Point four, sisters be acting strange. Talking about Black women's behaviors within this rap and hip hop video culture. Next point, Black fertility matters. Point six, media, agents of social engineering. Next, we're going to deal with the rise of the 666 thugsters. This is a very, very important conversation because the question arises. If we look at the early Snoop Doggy Dogg, and we can look at Eazy-E and Ice-T and others, we ask, how do these guys, which are such pariah of law enforcement, the national leadership, the executive branch of the government, calling them out, and there were pariahs of mainstream media, how do they now, how is Snoop the darling, the absolute darling of the media? The rise of the 666 Thursdays, what deal did he confess to? In the video you just saw, what deal did he confess to with Lucifer, the devil? And then the question really arises, where do we go from here? So here's what I did. And I'm doing the best I can to be as fair as I can in this conversation. I went to my favorite AI search. And I hadn't done this before, not to this extent. And I searched for my book title, and I asked for the perplexity to summarize what the book was about. I did this a second time, and here's what we have to do. Here's what we have to share. Rap, Hip Hop, and the New World Order by Kidi Obiawadu. First published in 1997 by Conscious Rasta Press, offers a provocative critique of hip hop's evolution amid broader socio-political forces. Owadu contends that what began as a powerful expression of Black urban resistance has been systematically undermined by, quote, hostile external forces, unquote, including corporate media, law enforcement, and shadowy political entities to sow chaos within the hip hop generation. Core theses. Owadu contends that corporate, political, and intelligence interests intervened in rap's development to neutralize its early potential for Black nationalist consciousness and grassroots organizing. He portrays the rise of gangsta, nihilistic, and hyper-materialist themes as engineered to promote self-destruction, consumerism, and apathy among African-descended youth. The music industry's consolidation, radio programming shifts, and music video imagery are read as instruments of a larger, quote, New World Order, unquote, agenda. Industry and state manipulation. This gets deep. The book examines the ownership structure of record labels, distribution companies, and media outlets to show how a small set of largely non-Black gatekeepers determine which artists and messages reach mass audiences. Owadu suggests law enforcement and intelligence agencies monitor and sometimes shape rap narratives, especially around drugs, crime, and political dissent. He links certain lyrical trends and artist trajectories to broader policies like the war on drugs, mass incarceration, and urban disinvestment. Martyrdom and propaganda. A recurring theme is the suspicious nature and political significance of the violent deaths of high-profile rap stars. Owadu argues that these deaths often serve to reinforce fatalism, glamorize criminal lifestyles, and distract from systemic analysis of power. He reads high-visibility beefs, feuds, and celebrity scandals as carefully amplified spectacles that drown out social consciousness. Pan-African and spirituality grounded hip-hop. The book ultimately calls for reclaiming hip-hop as a vehicle for liberation, and disciplined cultural production, and strategic resistance to global white supremacy and imperial control. Origin and subversion. Hip hop emerged in the 1970s Bronx as a cultural movement blending DJing, MCing, graffiti, and breakdancing, tools for common community empowerment and social commentary. Owadu traces its commodification through major labels that amplified gangster rap's glorification of violence, drugs, and materialism, diverting youth from activism toward self-destruction. He frames this as, quote, planned chaos, unquote, where global capitalism harnesses hip hop's influence to penetrate stereotypes and consumerist values, weakening diasporic solidarity. Cultural and political analysis. Owadu examines how global capitalism redirects hip hop's energy, turning global audiences toward consumerism rather than activism. He highlights manipulative influences in music production and distribution that amplify negative stereotypes, eroding community solidarity. Key cases: rap superstars' demises. Central to the book are analysis of icons like Tupac Shakur and the Notorious B.I.G. Owadu uncovers, quote, hidden details, unquote, linking their lives and assassinations to law enforcement operations and rivalries fueled by external agitators. These tragedies, he argues, exemplify a, quote, new world order, unquote, strategy to neutralize rising voices challenging systemic oppression, much like historical suppressions of Black leaders. The broader cultural impact. Owadu extends his lens globally, showing how hip hop's export reshapes youth worldwide, prioritizing profit-driven narratives over ancestral wisdom and resistance. Misogyny and hyper-competitiveness in lyrics erode communal bounds, aligning with elite agendas for division. A call for reclamation. Optimistically, Owadu urges creative urban youth, quote unquote, to reclaim hip hop by reviving conscious artistry, storytelling rooted in African traditions, education, and unity. Alternatives like independent labels and community centers can counter manipulation, transforming the genre back into a force for liberation. Last, path to redemption. Despite this, Owadu envisions hip hop's revival through conscious artistry that reconnects with African diasporic traditions of storytelling and uplift. Creative urban youth, he argues, can counter these forces by fostering alternatives rooted in truth and unity. This seminal work, reissued as an audio book, sparks debate on music's role in power dynamics, remaining relevant in today's streaming era. And I gotta say, that AI description of my book, I thought it was fantastic. I'll be honest with you. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I want to know, you tell me what you thought about the AI's review of the book, Rap, Hip Hop, and the New World Order. I'd love to hear from you today. Are you in the house? I think you are. I do see my sister for Africa One did check in, so I know you're in the house. And I apologize for the first clip on Snoop, and it was a news story, and maybe I will play it again. If you need to, I will play it again. Just request it. She says, Hotep, Brother Keedy, and Global LB family, a much needed review of this genocidal phenomena in our communities. And it is. She's absolutely right. But this involves our childbearing age youth. So we have to ask the question, what will we do to protect the collective of childbearing youth in our community? What would we do? Because it's going to be a real fight. And a wise man by the name of Steve Coakley once said, if it's going to be a fight anyway, he was going to get some punches in. If it's going to be a fight anyway, he said, I'm going to get some punches in. And I am going to echo those same sentiments as my brother, our brother. Now he is our ancestor, Steve Coakley. Let's do the best we can. To do the best we can. We cannot allow this genocidal sacrifice, not just of the rappers, the assassins, the martyrs, not the assassins, the assassinated martyrs. We're going to have to do a better job of protecting all of our young people. So here's what I'm going to be sharing. I'm going to be reading from parts of the book. Definitely have to tap into chapter 1, which is entitled Population Wars. I begin with this quote from Aldous Huxley from the book Brave New World Revisited. He wrote, and I opened up this page. Okay, there it is. And I'm not seeing or hearing anyone related. I do see 3 thumbs up on the YouTube page. That means people are listening. And I don't think today's conversation is going to be one that people are going to be able to turn off once it's going. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am wrong in thinking there's no way in the world our people can just sit passively and continue to allow a second generation of our childbearing age youth to be decimated by this dysfunctional video culture. Population Wars, Chapter 1. I begin with Aldous Huxley from Brave New World. To most people, music is intrinsically attractive. Moreover, melodies tend to ingrain themselves in the listener's mind. A tune will haunt the memory during the whole of a lifetime. Here, for example, is a quite uninteresting statement or value judgment. As it stands, nobody will pay attention to it. But now set the words to a catchy and easily remembered tune. Immediately they become words of power. Moreover, the words will tend to automatically repeat themselves every time the melody is heard or spontaneously remembered. Orpheus has entered into an alliance with Pavlov, the power of sound and the conditioned reflex. Unquote. Rule number 1, survival of the fittest. Key to the survival of any people, be they an ethnic group, nation, or race, is continued procreation. Now, this is me writing, of course. Our beloved Creator blesses nations with the fruitful generations, or if the people have fallen out of favor with God, barrenness. Even for those who do produce significant numbers of childbirths, if the structure of the community is weak or disoriented, if parenting skills are sufficiently lacking or under development, or if the genetic material which has coalesced in the child is weak or defective, the result is a failure of the necessary natural procreation process. That is a violation of rule number 1, survival of the fittest. A very unusual and historic event is occurring among the mostly white populations of the world's most industrialized nations. Since the late 1950s, women of these countries have experienced the steepest decline in fertility that the world has ever seen. But this poses major problems for a minority of the world's population. The major reason Europeans came to dominate the world over the past 5 centuries is a large number of children born to their women during that period. That high birth rate accompanied Europe's greatest period of outward migration, combined with military technology advancements and a deep commitment to use that might to rule over other peoples by any means necessary. Plentiful human resources eventually translate to power. And someone put something up on my Facebook today, and it was very useful. I'm going to just refer to it. And if you're interested, you go to my Facebook page. It's easy to find me. Go to Facebook, Kedia Wadu. And he put up this link. It was entitled Study: Sexual Activity Among U.S. Adults Has Declined Almost 40% since 1990. 40% decline, sexual activity. That's where babies come from. It's not recreation. It's not exploitation. It's not whatever it has been translated to from this video culture. No, it's about making babies. And they're talking about sexual activity just between U.S. adults. That's not talking about men on men and women on women. They're talking about all sexual activity. And we do know that these new introductions do not produce babies. This recent rapid decline in fertility among the dominant culture indicates an impending shift in the global power distribution over the next century. With a low proportion of children and the production age population ages 18 to 50, with a new low proportion of children and the production age population 18 to 50, a nation can predict that it will eventually see its power fade. Fertility among white women in Europe and America is the lowest in recorded history and is now plummeting at the fastest rate ever. Now, since then, South Korea's infertility has surpassed that of the United States. Japan is shrinking. China is shrinking. A number of other countries now. It's worse in South Korea than anywhere else on the planet. But Singapore, shrinking population. In fact, there are at least 9, the last time I counted, at least 9 nations around the world that are actually shrinking. Fertility is the lowest it's ever been, an estimated 1.35 childbirths per woman. It is now far below the required rate for replacement, which is 2.1 childbirths per woman. A nation's population is stable at replacement rate. Less than that, and a country is in decline. National security planners have weighed the strategic implications of this fact for decades and have come up with a set of policies to address the phenomenon. In the Black community inside America, a related crisis is overtaking many reproductive age youths, the so-called hip-hop generation. Because of massive media coverage by now, even those of us who don't know much of anything else are quite familiar with the tragedies which have snuffed out the lives of some of the so-called gangsta rap stars. The central theme I'm dealing with in this report is this question: could the deaths of rap stars Eazy-E, aka Eric Wright, Tupac Shakur, and Biggie Smalls, also known as Notorious B.I.G., and others be somehow linked to this clash in fertility rates between whites and non-whites? Are Black and brown urban youth systematically being steered toward behaviors that undermine their reproductive self-interest? A final question remains. If this sinister manipulation of the hip hop generation is occurring, who is responsible? And what evidence can be produced to confirm this? So I go off into a whole nother direction here at this point in this chapter, and I talk about my own background. Here's a very important point. What we are addressing and what I wish to document in this book is a covert intrusion into rap and hip hop by agents of the U.S. national security establishment. The consequences of this manipulation are the most disturbing, and thus it must be thoroughly investigated by those whose self-interests are threatened by the attack. In what was then a groundbreaking 1993 work entitled The Trojan Horse Analysis, I demonstrated how the most popular rap and hip hop videos were encoded with what I termed the quote, 12 recurring negative themes, unquote. Constant repetition of certain negative themes within the videos was subliminally beaming self-destructive ideas into vulnerable youth's minds. Further analysis following the rules of cause and effect has proven the Trojan horse analysis correctness, because we can now witness evidence of a terrifying set of negative behaviors contrary to the nature of urban youth or the community from which they sprang. The 12 themes which I articulated include techniques which came straight out of the U.S. Army's psychological warfare catalog, such as subliminal programming methods aimed at demonization and criminalization of the enemy, urban youth, hypnotic techniques to create chaos, and a centrally coordinated anti-youth propaganda campaign through the mainstream press. Before the Trojan horse analysis, I was not aware that anyone had taken on a scientific and psychological analysis of the widely promoted rap and hip hop videos from the basis of defending the community. Too many were criticizing the youth music culture, blaming the hip hop generation for things beyond the youth's capability to have instigated themselves. No, there were bigger forces at work here, and they were largely escaping criticism from those silly politicians, ministers, and other critics who were making all the noise. Breaking down the social disruption that had been occurring within the hip hop generation in a scientific approach and understanding it as such, this mayhem becomes quite alarming, and the consequences of it make it intolerable. The next chapter 2, I go into an inquiry into the death of Eazy-E, 1995. And I'm not going to read from this chapter. It's all questions. The whole chapter is just questions, one following another question. It's like 200 questions. But what I do with those questions is that when I ask a question, the next question that I ask kind of answers the question before it. But here's a quote that I use to open this chapter. This quote is from myself. Urban youth are at the center of a social firestorm as America goes through the torment of hatred of itself. The quote, ghetto boys, unquote, are represented in the media propaganda machine as the source of the mayhem. Are these youth capable of creating the widespread havoc that is common in their own neighborhood, or is what we are seeing an example of, quote, planned chaos coming from more powerful forces, question mark. And I'm gonna skip that chapter It's a good chapter, though. It's not very long, but it's very good. This is important. Chapter 3, recruiting indigenous collaborators. And I would love, love, love to hear your comment. If you're listening on YouTube, if you are listening on Rumble, if you are listening on Facebook Live, let me know what you're hearing. I'm not getting much feedback, and we can do better than this. I do see feedback from my sister for Africa One. She writes, AI review, spot on. Yes, replay, please. So I'm going to replay that video I shared a little bit earlier. Bear with me. I have to grab it. I'm going to copy it. And this time I'm going to replay the video, and I'm going to turn my microphone off. And this is the video that we shared. Copy. And I'm going to paste this here so you can see which one I'm playing. And then I'm going to paste it here so my listening audience can have access to it and present the screen. And it's muted right now. One sec. Unmute. Replay. I'm going to mute my microphone, and then I'm going to play the video.
A murder charge almost derailed Snoop Dogg's career. Snoop's been on top since Dre discovered him in '92, but a few years prior, he was a thug who constantly battled the law. He ran with the Rolling 20s Crips, a gang from his native Long Beach, California. As his star continued to grow, Snoop struggled to separate himself from the gang. That is until one altercation came to a boiling point. Snoop and his bodyguard Malik pulled up on rival gang members just hours after a heated exchange. Snoop rolled his Jeep to their park bench and began to trade words. One of the rival members set Malik off, so he stood up inside of their topless Jeep, pulled his pistol, and gunned the man down. Snoop peeled off in a panic and hid out for 2 days before turning himself in. He was charged with murder, but during the trial, we discovered the victim tried to pull out his own pistol before Malik shot him in self-defense. It was also discovered the LAPD accidentally destroyed crucial evidence, including bullets from the scene. Snoop was acquitted in '96 and points to this as a turning point in his career. He stopped rapping about death as he didn't want to use his voice to glorify violence or murder. Throw me a follow if you didn't know this. If you did, I'll settle for a like. A murder charge almost derailed Snoop.
All right, that was the video. I replayed it a second time. Now, it had several key points in it. You have to understand, there's a sequence here. That murder charge against Snoop follows by less than a year the release of his video called Murder Was the Case That They Gave Me. And I played the video. You have the link to it. Murder Was the Case is Snoop making a deal with Lucifer. At that point, and I recorded this in 1997, that Snoop had become a Luciferian. Now, I don't know what was the date of that murder charge. Can I double check that? 1 second. I don't necessarily want to go through all of that. But if you check it all out, Snoop becomes a Luciferian. Less than a year later, he's charged with murder. But Lucifer, in the video, Snoop says, Lucifer is promising, he says, how long you gonna live? He said, you're gonna live forever. Snoop is gonna live forever now because his personality crosses over into the era of artificial intelligence. And you can already see many, many videos of Snoop created by AI, doing things, saying things with people that did not exist. So I almost wish there were a group of us studying this book together. If a group of us study this together, there's a good likelihood we will be able to implement some solutions together. Now, there are a whole bunch of people out here working with and for the best self-interest of our childbearing age youth, and I salute all of them. However, I must question whether they are aware of the game that's going on. It's called game theory. Game theory goes so deep that I suspect that it goes way beyond the capacity of individualized urban youth, these rap hip hop celebrities, to understand what game theory truly is. As much as I know about game theory and is well versed on many aspects of it in real time as the mastermind group that we have here on LIB Radio on Sundays, as well advanced as we are in that, game theory is over our heads. Now, I've studied it to the best of my abilities. I wrote about it to the best of my abilities, but still, it's so far ahead of where I am, especially when it comes to a proper response to the nature of the game and the players' strategy, and the players that are aligned against my team. My team doesn't understand game theory. So, and For African One points out the point that I made in the book. LAPD accidentally destroy evidence? Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. Yeah. Because in the sequence of the shooting, it's very clear that they were stalking someone, Snoop and his bodyguard driving around. And it becomes very clear, well, in the sequence that was portrayed in that short piece of video, that Snoop drew his weapon first and fired first. Obviously, I would say he did fire first because he dropped the guy that was opposing him. So did LAPD destroy evidence in that murder? Yes. Did we see the destruction of evidence in the murder of Eazy-E at Cedars-Sinai Hospital, where he was killed, but it was blamed on the so-called AIDS virus? Yes, we saw the destruction of evidence. And in fact, I was the first one to ever publish anything or say in public that Eazy-E was most likely a victim of a morphine overdose while he was in the hospital for a severe bronchial asthmatic attack. Did we see any evidence of destruction or subversion in the case of Tupac Shakur's assassination? Yes. Did we see any evidence of subversion or burying of evidence in the case of Biggie Smalls? Yes. In fact, the cases of Biggie Smalls and Tupac are just now coming to the forefront. They just now have an arrest in Tupac's murder of a person called Kiki D. But if you watch the video, P. Diddy, The Reckoning, it's out right now. It's on Netflix. I just watched part 3 of it. I've been trying to hold back and not greedily watch it all in one set. But there's a whole lot of information there that would indicate P. Diddy could very well likely be indicted for assassination of Biggie Smalls if law enforcement really wanted him. I don't think law enforcement really wants to take him down. Why? Because they collaborated with others for so long to put him in place. They don't want to bring him down. They want him to continue creating chaos and mayhem among the childbearing age population. Creating chaos, planned chaos. That's the point that I'm making. You're absolutely right to point that out. LAPD accidentally destroy evidence? Question mark. Thank you for sharing that. And again, all these little bits and pieces and fragments I'm putting together, I hope you agree. There are so many details in here. Way too many details for me to be able to figure it out, let alone to be able to put a solution into place. I know what we can do. The whole book, Rap, Hip Hop, and the New World Order, the last chapters of the book give all solutions. We'll get to some of those today. I'm going to go back to the book, and we are in the chapter. Ooh, this is very important. We are in the chapter. This is chapter, I'm fast forwarding. We were in the chapter before of indigenous collaborators, how they were recruiting gangster rappers, get paid and get fronted. That's chapter 4. And we were just reading from chapter 3, recruiting indigenous collaborators. Now, chapter 4, gangster rappers get paid and get fronted. Is my brilliant friend, Coach Alfred Coach Powell, the author of the landmark book, Message in a Bottle, The 40-Ounce Conspiracy, has illustrated. Certain high-profile rappers have been recruited by major corporations to deliver masses of Black and brown youth as consumers of one of the most dangerous alcoholic beverages ever manufactured, the deadly 40-ounce malt liquors. These toxic spirits are marketed primarily at urban youth. Alfred Coach Powell refers to these malt liquors as, quote, psycho-biochemically engineered drugs, unquote, laced with substances that undermine its consumers' mental and reproductive capabilities. How have hip hop artists become so short-sighted as to have been co-opted to promote this chemical warfare that has been linked to the deaths of many of their fellows? When will they declare that their generation has suffered enough such exploitation? It's painful to witness creative and talented young artists like Ice Cube, Eazy-E, Snoop Dogg. He is creative, he is talented. I don't like him, have never liked him. Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls collaborating to advertise various lethal brews from McKinsey River Corporation, including the subliminally named Saint Ides. It's not Saint Ides, it's ST Ides. Saint is, you abbreviate Saint with a small t. This is Satan Ides. Coach Powell decodes this label to mean, quote, Satan Ides. He points out that to name an alcoholic beverage after a religious symbol would violate liquor manufacturers' promotional codes. This stands contradictory to any natural instinct that the Black community is obligated to protect our reproductive age youth from attack by hostile forces. Though all of these young men, except Ice Cube, have suffered frequent high-profile encounters with the law, seems to be no obstacle to their being hired as spokesmen for the breweries and their advertising agencies. On the contrary, defiance against authoritarianism is part of the attraction here, including defiance against those community and family members who would love these youth the most. As Coach Powell points out, these advertisements are often loaded with eroticism and disturbing esoteric images, subliminally advocating Satanism and death to hip hop generation members. At what point do we hold those responsible whose lives of deprivation and hunger has reversed itself and are now getting fat off the continued suffering of the larger mass of urban youth? Gangster rappers must be made to understand that they cannot make a comfortable life for themselves while selling out the enlightened self-interest of their fellows. Hell, that makes them seem too much like run-of-the-mill African-American religious leaders and politicians who seem to have ingrained a culture of selling out one's greater strategic interests for a few shekels or for a pat on the head from master. And we're talking about sellouts in Hollywood. That's a given. I'm going to go forward and talk about, I got to share this paragraph. Powerful media conglomerates with names such as Time Warner, MCA, Viacom, News Corp, and others have set up fiefdoms within the United States through which they exert a disproportionate controlling effect on various communities. These huge private corporations are led by powerful individuals such as Gerald Levine, Time Warner, Edgar Bronfman, Seagrams, Universal Music Group and MCA, Sumner Redstone, Viacom, and Rupert Murdoch, News Corp. Their corporations operate as mini fiefdoms which serve the interests of the U.S. national security establishment on covert operations designed to satisfy their mutual self-interest. Within the hip-hop community, this devilish network has worked its hidden hand by controlling and manipulating the images of rap and hip-hop artists, selectively distributing music and videos that serve to undermine urban youth's ability to assume their rightful place in history. Ultimately, this network of control can extend to assassinations of rappers. The cases of Tupac Shakur, Biggie Smalls, and others, including Eazy-E, who was so bold as to try to interrupt the most powerful Sony Columbia Corporation as it exploited hip-hop artists. Eazy filed a, quote, civil racketeering suit, unquote, against Sony. That stands for SONY, Standard Oil, New York, that's Rockefeller money, on August 3rd, 1991, for the type of deals which pulled artists such as Ice Cube and Dr. Dre away from his and Jerry Heller, Mike Bourbeau's Ruthless Records. This hidden hand must be exposed and its power shut down. Chapter 6, The Hidden Side of Eazy-E. It goes deep. I'm just going to share just the first paragraph to introduce this chapter. And I also, before I even get there, I do talk on page 25 of the book about linking this to the neutralization of the Black Panthers. Word was on the street, and it was evident within his music that Eazy-E was involved in a satanic cult towards the end of his life. As well, one could suspect that this devil business may have been related to whatever turned his fellow bandmates off to the situation there at Ruthless. I'll have much more to say about Eazy-E and Ruthless Records later in this report. The following excerpt is from a declassified document which emerged from the FBI's infamous COINTELPRO program, an illegal campaign against militant Blacks, which targeted Black leadership for, quote, neutralization, unquote, to include spying, provocateur acts of sabotage against dozens of Black organizations, and ultimately including the most extreme form of neutralization, assassination. Please study the following carefully. You know about this memo to Director FBI from Special Agent in Charge San Francisco. Read the Counterintelligence Program, Black Nationalist Hate Groups, Racial Intelligence. Raymond S. Byers is assigned to coordinate this program within the San Francisco division. Quote, the Negro youth wants and needs something to be proud of. The Negro youth and moderate must be made to understand that if they succumb to revolutionary teaching, they will be dead revolutionaries. Is it not better to be a sports hero, a well-paid professional athlete or entertainer, a regularly paid white or blue-collar worker, a peaceful human being with a family, or a person who is at least being accepted, than a Negro who may have gotten even with the establishment by burning it down, but who along with this burned down his own home and gained for him and all of his people the hatred and distrust of the whites for years to come, close quote. The broader implications of this document and how it intended to implement its program for the control of, quote, Negro youth are very significant to our analysis. I believe it indicates the origin of much of the chaos created within the rap and hip hop music subculture. to give substance to this point, I later referred to an article which appeared in the LA Times, which would indicate that rapper Ice-T is fulfilling the desires stated in this declassified FBI memo, at which point he has cut a special deal to position himself to avoid, quote, the hatred and distrust of the whites for years to come, unquote. I do say, see the profile of Ice-T in the chapter entitled Strange Bedfellows Indeed. It might also explain the bizarre behaviors of certain other entertainers and athletes. Later, we'll try to make some sense of the wild and confusing story of how Death Row Records chief Marion Suge Knight got involved with a cast of characters from the LA County District Attorney's Office, West Side Los Angeles Entertainment, and criminal lawyers, the Justice Department, and a controversial judge whom we recall from the Rodney King courtroom. And then there's chapter 6, The Hidden Side of Eazy-E, where I refer much of what Eazy-E was into. I referred also to the case of an alleged bombing attack plot planned by Nazi skinheads against certain members of the Black community of LA, including Rodney King and the congregation of LA's first African American Methodist Episcopal Church, FAME. That this alleged plot occurred just as members of the LA activist community were planning a major rally to protest the association of FAME church leaders with the FBI's COINTELPRO program. Most notably, Julio Julius Butler, the former LA County Sheriff's deputy turned Black Panther, who served as an FBI and Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office, quote, ghetto informant, unquote, whose perjured court testimony was critical toward the conviction of former Panther Minister of Defense Geronimo Gijaga Pratt for murder that everyone knows he could not have committed. Within this context, the alleged bombing plot at First AME was looked upon by well-informed activists as a plan to bolster the tainted public image of famed Pastor Cecil Murray and other church leaders in the face of a groundswell of opposition from grassroots organizers committed to securing justice for Geronimo Pratt. If it were a fake plot, how did it come to pass that Eazy-E was drawn into an FBI orchestrated script, which included Julius Butler, the FBI, Nazi skinheads, and the Anti-Defamation League? Could this be an indication of a modern version of COINTELPRO at work in hip hop and religious communities? Whew. And I go in, we talk about Simi Valley, the Rodney King beating and the riot that followed. And Eazy-E was labeled a sellout for publicly siding with Ted Brasino, who shared a lawyer with Eazy-E. Ted Brasino was one of the 4 cops filmed beating the life into Rodney King. Brasino and Eazy-E shared a lawyer, and he was labeled a sellout for insisting that Brasino was innocent. This is such a good report. I do cite this from the Information Project for Africa, which talks about, note the following citation that I initially reviewed from a publication by the Information Project for Africa. Quote, talk about the use of propaganda for political warfare. Quote, nothing can be left to chance. To be effective, an intervention in the media must be thorough, careful, persistent, and extravagant. It must be capable of penetrating the minds of the audience at the subconscious as well as the conscious level. It must systematically create an illusion on a massive scale, while at the same time remaining discreet enough to give the impression that the false doctrine represents a spontaneous change in the target society itself. Close quote. That is from Propaganda, Cultural Imperialism, and Population Control, Ideological Communications in the Southern Hemisphere, working paper number 3 from the Information Project for Africa. I do see a comment from my sister, and thank you for speaking with me today. I'm not alone, and I'm not lonely, but it is so much better when people get to hear that at least one person other than myself finds this research compelling. For Africa One writes, do you think parents and our communities were blindsided and or powerless to respond to what was happening at the time? That's an interesting question. The majority, yes. But the thing is Coach Powell was responding at the time. I was responding at the time. Steve Coakley was responding at the time. Del Jones was responding at the time. And we were the bridges. Khalid Muhammad was responding at the time. We were the bridges between the young people and the baby boomer generation, which was going into the parents of these young people. So the fact that these 5 people that I mentioned, Coach Powell, Steve Coakley, myself, Khalid Muhammad, Del Jones, so there would be 6 of us, we were aware in real time at the time. We were speaking publicly about it. I did on this book alone, I think I did at least 12 to 15 public forums as I wrote the chapters. Every chapter was a different week. So there were how many chapters in the book? Something like 16 chapters, 18 chapters. So we did the best we could, but we lost. They kicked our butts. And we lost a whole generation, more than one generation, because the youth, the grandchildren, Generation Y, Generation X, Generation Millennials, they're not lost, but they have been severely impacted and injured by the sufferations of those of their generations. And so we have to ask the question, where do we go from here, which is chapter 18 of the book? Where do we go from here? Chapter 17 talks about 7 Mac, the creation of an organization, flipping the script. I write an excerpt, I include an excerpt from the book, The Road to Power, 7 Steps to an African Global Order. We are bold and deliberate in moving towards fulfilling these greatest visions, those greatest visions that our beloved ancestors have left us. As one great institution builder, Booker T. Washington, instructed us, quote, Black man and Black woman, cast down your lot where you stand and begin to build. Beloved ancestor, we hear your instructions and we will obey without hesitation or failure. From The Road to Power. So that's chapter 17, but I'm going to go to chapter 18. Where do we go from here? I begin with a quote. I begin with this quote from my brother, and I love the man so dearly, Del Jones, praise be his eternal name. Quote, America is a nigger factory. Close quote. I close this edition of the Conscious Rasta Report full of excitement, energized, and hopeful. While I must admit that absorbing myself with this academic pursuit of the hip-hop music culture has caused many sleepless nights and personal discomfort, I'm absolutely excited about the future that is before me. As I get the opportunity to meet many rap and hip hop celebrities that I recognize from the media, I am surprised and often impressed that they can be down to earth and real in a very pleasant sense. That they regard me as a highly knowledgeable Baba who intends to forge a transfer of power is an honor. The image that has permeated the mass media that urban youth, black and brown in particular, are buck wild and out of control is absurd. I've talked with large numbers of them, looked them straight in the eye, and asked about what they feel on serious subjects. I find them to be no more ignorant of the key issues of the time than their parents. In many instances, I find that younger community members are more aware of the critical challenges than their parents, a disproportion of whom are obsessed with the corporate mentality, stacking up consumable goods, and political social compromise. We may witness destructive images of gangsters, players, hoochie mamas, and buckwild thugs in the media. Still, you would have a hard time convincing me that these media perpetrated characters actually represent the hip hop generation. Most people will be surprised to find what I have discovered over the few years that I have been pursuing this area of scholarship. Some of these youth are incredibly hardworking. Some are entrepreneurs, making a living out of the meager resources available to them. Hence, how the rappers made a whole industry out of, quote, a microphone and 2 broken turntables, unquote. As my good friend, the war correspondent Del Jones puts it, within these young women and men are the hopes and dreams of the community. Yes, there lingers in the back of their minds the psychological baggage of living in such a chaotic and hostile environment as the concentrated urban areas within America. But don't believe that the youth are as caught up in the hip hop generation's perceived negativity as the media would make us all feel. These youth are as quick to smile, to tell a joke, and to express creative spontaneity as any of us. They just need more exposure to the ways of the world and different environments and access to resources to manifest their own ambitions. This road toward the empowerment of the hip hop generation that I and others from the so-called baby boom generation have embarked upon will undoubtedly be fraught with bumps and bruises along the way. The prospect of exposing the hidden hand of demonic manipulation and naming the names of those who manipulate and kill our youth does present the possibility of dangerous encounters. We are all aware that the US government often kills its enemies and feared competitors. They killed far more than the 21 Black Panthers whose numbers are recorded in the history of COINTELPRO. We know about the examples of John Kennedy, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., and Bobby Kennedy assassinated during a period of just 1 decade. And that all of these murders have the bloody fingerprints of government agencies all over them. The murders of Eazy-E, Tupac Shakur, Biggie Smalls, and perhaps a dozen other associated with these men stand as an example of the same officially sanctioned process of terminating enemies of the state with prejudice. Yes, we are aware of this process, yet we stand unafraid. Partially because of our faith in the omnipotence of our beloved Creator, and partially because of the pragmatism of the, quote, 7-for-1 formula of compensatory retaliation. 7-for-1 formula of compensatory retaliation. Read in it what you see, what you might hear. 1 year 2 years from now, all of this may seem so unimportant to me, or the opposite. Maybe the situation and I may look back and see that this research project was a defining moment. Whatever the course of the next few years brings, I cannot help but believe that this emphasis on the empowerment of the so-called hip-hop generation is quite likely the most important task of my lifetime, that I have trained for years to conduct this very exercise. I welcome and support any assistance from those who have sincere desire to see this transition of power occur. Please come and join this movement as soon as you can possibly make the commitment. 7 Mac is on the attack. So these are excerpts I've been reading from today, the book Rap, Hip Hop, and the New World Order. And now we have 27 years, 28 years since the book was released in 1997. 28 years for us to figure it out, to get it together, get our act together. It's going to be tough, but I do think it's well worth our efforts. I think it's well worth our efforts. On that note, I just want to remind you that this month, December, we are involved in our fund drive. Let me remind you what we are about. And today was part of a Pan-African story. Africa's story is being rewritten by Africans, and we are honored to be a part of that narrative. This December, as we celebrate another year of amplifying Pan-African voices, challenging neo-colonial frameworks, and exploring sustainable development pathways, we are calling on our community to ensure that this critical work continues. Mainstream media consistently misrepresents Africa, focusing on poverty and conflict while ignoring innovation, resilience, and self-determination. Our podcast exists to counter these narratives by centering African perspectives on sovereignty, economic independence, and sustainable development that works for African people, not just foreign investors. We've featured conversations on land rights, indigenous knowledge systems, regional integration, renewable energy transitions, and economic models that prioritize people over profit, culture over the corporate consumerism. We've explored how African nations are navigating global power dynamics, building South-South cooperation, or diaspora and South cooperation, and reclaiming their resources and narratives. This work matters because representation matters, and authentic voices must be heard. Your donations directly supports our ability to connect with activists, scholars, entrepreneurs, and community leaders across the continent and across the diaspora. It helps us cover stories ignored by mainstream outlets and platform solutions emerging from African communities themselves. We're not asking for charity. We're asking for investment in a movement towards genuine Pan-African solidarity and sustainable futures. This holiday season, consider the value of perspectives that challenge Western-centric development models, that celebrate African innovation and envision futures built on self-determination. whether you can give $15, $40, or $75. Your contribution amplifies voices that deserve platforms and supports analysis that mainstream media simply will not provide. Help us, would you please, to reach our December fundraising goal so that we can continue to expand our Pan-African network, invest in on-the-ground reporting, and continue building bridges across the diaspora. Every donation strengthens our collective power to tell our own stories and shape our own destinies. Together, we're not just documenting Africans' rise, we are participating in it. And that is very, very important. So on that note, let me just share with you the link. This is, of course, the December Fund Drive. Together, we're building a healthier, more informed community, one episode at a time. I'm going to ask you to go to libradio.com. It's the HTTP. And click on the link. You're going to find a link on that website. And at that link, you can make a donation. I do see you in the house, Sandra Muhammad and Eddie McCroy. He said, great show. I have this book. It's very good. Thank you so much, Eddie, man. That really, really means a lot to me. He said, I helped to open. I can't tell what the message is. It's very good. And others, something helped to open. Learning still, Sandra Muhammad, I see you in the house today, beloved. Great to have you with us always, always. I'm learning still. She has with several excellent exclamation points. Exactly, she types. The name of the book, Rap, Hip Hop, and the New World Order. Rap, Hip Hop, and the New World Order. Available at Amazon.com and also at http://Conscious Rasta Press CRP 2012. So I do encourage each and every one of us to consider getting the book. It is good. She says, okay, she's going to get it. And it's at Amazon as well as I've got it on my website at all. Now, normally I'm going to have this book in stock, but I think my stock is out right now and I'm going to have to reorder it myself. But it's a good book. I do highly recommend it to each and every one of you. She said, yep, I'm going to get it. Thank you so, so much, Sandra Muhammad. What a blessing it is to have you in your brother's camp. I'm truly grateful for each and every one of you. I got to note someone. Okay, that note was unrelated to the show. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. And the book is entitled, let me put this up, Rap, Hip Hop, and the New World Order. Planned Chaos in Youth Music Culture. And bear with me, Rap and the Hip Hop and the New World Order copy. And today's issue was the update, when the update was actually 2022. That's the updated version of the book, is at http://keidi.biz/CRP 2012. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And on that note, I'm going to wrap it up for today. And give you the bumper music as we're going out. As we go out, you generally hearing the music playing for a minute or so while I take you through a tour of the books that I have published. And we have to understand, this is real complicated. What I do is very complicated. I have created a life for myself, and I have a large set of habits and routines that really do work. I think they make me somewhat invincible. Somewhat, I say. Because not one of us is truly invincible. I got hit by a car about a little over 10 years ago. That car, it should have killed me, but it didn't. I went home that night from the hospital. They were shocked and surprised that I had no broken bones. And I took 0 drugs and healed my body in 10 months completely. And I was younger after the healing process than I was even before. We have tapped into Ma'at on a deeper level. We've tapped into the greatest knowledge and wisdom that the planet has ever known, including the glorious periods. We're standing on the shoulders of those standing on Imhotep's shoulders. And because Imhotep is the foundation holding us all up, I could never say I am greater than Imhotep, but I can say the knowledge available to me to live to my best is greater than it's ever been on the planet. That includes that of Imhotep. So I want you to understand, don't take what I do here, don't take it for granted. Take it seriously. Bring in more people. Please do. Because the more people that tune into us, the more we can express who we are and why we are here for this planet at this time. You've been tuned into your favorite. We aim to be your favorite. We are LIB Radio, LIB TV. We are living in black.com. Peace and prosperity to each and every one of you.